Welcome back to Continental Club. We discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining myself and my Cubs with Henry still away. We've got Jack Collins of the Ranks FC podcast. Jack, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me back on. It's always a pleasure. I had a great time the last time, so I'm looking forward to this.
Good news. And before we get into any European matters, I've got to ask you about Fulham. How are you feeling before the start of the Premier League this weekend?
Absolutely terrified. But you know how it is. Two fit centre-backs or two senior centre-backs in the squad, all a bit worrying. But we'll get there. I'm pleased with some of the signings, especially some of the signings from Europe. So the recruitment's been good. It's just not been fast enough. So we'll see how we get on. But Liverpool is a tricky test to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't get much harder than that. My Cubs, how are you doing? Man United have got Brighton this weekend, don't they? And Tony Martial's pulled up injured, I saw just before we came on this.
Yeah, not great. Coming up against our nemesis from last season. I actually watched that 4-0 with a load of Brighton fans. When it was in May. So yeah, not feeling great about the opening weekend. But at the same time, it's Erik ten Hag, new manager, new style. I'm excited to see what Man United looks like. Over the next kind of month or so. So yeah, quietly, I don't know, optimistic-ish. I don't know.
I like it. You've got to be. It's the start of a new season, the start of a new era. But today, guys, we're not talking Premier League, of course. If you want to go watch any Premier League predictions, head over to Football Daily. This is Euro Football Daily, and we are running through our predictions for every top 5 league except for the Premier League. And we're going to kick off with the Bundesliga, because that actually starts tonight as you watch this on Friday with Bayern Munich versus Eintracht Frankfurt. Huge game, that. And then next week kicks off Liga, Serie A and La Liga. So we're going to start with the Bundesliga. I feel like it makes the most sense. And Jack, it's been a summer of massive turnover at Bayern Munich. How do you think they'll go this season?
It's still hard to look past them, isn't it? I think is kind of the key element of all of this. 10 straight titles for Bayern. So they're the kind of difficult second album, if you will, doesn't exist in Bayern Munich's world. And we've seen this happen before, right? Maybe not to this extent in terms of turnover, but we've seen them lose key players and just continue rolling onwards. And maybe if there were a side who were more in the ascendancy than any of their challengers, and I'm sure we'll come on to them, I think that basically we're getting to that point where no one is anywhere near ready, even if Bayern drop off a little bit, to directly challenge them for that title. Now, I know there have been title races in recent years. I'm not downplaying them, but it just feels like this squad is continually rolling over on so many brilliant kind of rhythms and like contractions between players and those kind of relationships that they have, that I just find it almost impossible not to back Bayern for an 11th straight title.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree as well. Which of their new signings are you most excited about? Because there's been quite a few. For Bayern, you tend to think of maybe 2-3 signings per window max, but there's been multiple ones to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, the Ajax trio, if you will, if you include De Ligt in this, are all incredibly exciting. And I think Mane will probably have the most say this year. But for me, it's probably Ryan Gravenberch, because what they're doing there is building this spine that could be there for another, 10 years in what you're picking up. And I think that Gravenberch was one of those players who we were kind of wondering what his next move would be. Everyone kind of assumed that he would make a jump after this season. And he's gone in somewhere where he can get minutes in a team that will suit him, I think, stylistically, and under a manager who I reckon will trust him quite implicitly by the end of the season. He's such a wonderful ball carrier. He's such a wonderful presence in that midfield. Obviously Kimmich has been running that role for such a long time in the kind of defensive midfield slot, and finding him a partner after Thiago took a while, and Goretzka stepped up, I think, into that role, but he struggled with injuries last season. Sabitzer didn't quite make the jump that many of us expected in that move from Leipzig to Bayern. So I think Gravenberch will get a rotation in here, and I think he's got the talent and the ability to go right to the top. So I think kind of long-termy, or semi-long-term, if you will, he's the one that excites me the most. But I think De Ligt and Mane are the two that will probably stand out this season.
Yeah, absolutely. The instant impact maybe on those two, but I do agree about Gravenberch. What a talent. And it's interesting you mentioned Nagelsmann as well, because I feel like for the first time, probably in his managerial career, he's under a little bit of pressure. I don't think last season went as well as many people were expecting. There was, it subsequently emerged that he had some issues with Lewandowski and his lack of perceived mobility for that front line. They obviously had that quite embarrassing result against Villarreal where they were pretty, comprehensively beaten, at least in one of the legs. I remember being really pretty dominant. They were humiliated in the Pokal by Gladbach as well. So to only end up with the Bundesliga in your debut campaign in Bavaria was a little disappointing. So we'll see what happens with Nagelsmann as the season progresses, because this feels like his squad now. He's got the signings that he wanted, and there's potentially been talk about Konrad Laimer joining him, who he worked with at Leipzig as well, although that's gone a little bit quiet in the last few weeks. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Cubs, let's talk challengers then. I assume you're going for Bayern as title winners, but who do you see coming second? Because that feels like one of the big questions that we're going to ask in this entire show, because it does feel really, really tight between Leipzig and Dortmund, is who I'd suggest at least.
Yeah, I'm actually going to throw a spanner in the works here. Most of my predictions, I think, are relatively sensible. I was hoping to build up to this one.
We need some chaos.
We've gone straight into the Bundesliga. And so second place is going to be between Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich for me. I think Leipzig are going to pit them to the title.
Love it.
It's a big one. It's a big call. But Leipzig were near Bayern's level for the last 6 months of last season. Tedesco's done an amazing job there, particularly improving that defence, which was so shaky under Jesse Marsch. There is a big turnover at Bayern. I think Lewandowski, I think they've done as good a job as they can have done in the market, but I think losing Lewandowski is a big one. I think Mane will score a ton, but will he score like between 30 and 40? I'm not so sure. Leipzig so far haven't lost any of their key players. At the moment, and Nkunku's definitely going to stay till next summer. At the moment, Konrad Laimer hasn't left. I think that would be a big one. I think if he was to leave, I would have my doubts, but Gvardiol has stayed so far as well. All these players that you would expect at least one of them to have left this summer. So far they've stayed, so I'll go with that. And I think in David Raum, getting him in from Hoffenheim is potentially the best signing of the window. I think he's quite a significant upgrade on Angelino, although I do rate Angelino as a wing-back, but David Raum was one of the best attacking full-backs / wing-backs in Europe last year. He was in the top 1%, for pretty much every creative metric. Obviously got those 11 assists, made that seamless transition from the second tier. And his delivery is just unbelievable. It's really up there with the best in Europe. And when you think about a player like Andre Silva, who when he was at Frankfurt was kind of feeding off everything Filip Kostic was giving him from the left, I kind of feel like David Raum is the perfect player for him. And I feel like if he can start really well and they can, strike up a good relationship, then I feel like we'll see Andre Silva get between 20 and 30 goals again. And I think that could be a really big difference for Leipzig's title challenge. If Nkunku can also produce at near the rate that he was last season. I think a lot depends on that midfield because, without Laimer, it's not the most strong. But I just think going forward, they have so much depth, especially if they manage to somehow get Timo Werner back to the club. We're still yet to see Szoboszlai really blossom into the player that he was hyped up at Salzburg, but I think we saw it in glimpses last season. So I think everything's going for Leipzig at the moment, and Bundesliga fans will obviously be distraught with that because that's the one team, aside from Bayern, that they wouldn't want to win the league. I'm going to stick my neck out there with this one and say that, Leipzig, could do it.
I love it. I was a little worried that for this, at least in terms of winners of every league, we'd kind of be in agreement, maybe with La Liga being the most contentious. But fair play, McCubs. Fair play indeed. You've had a little chaos factor early doors. I appreciate that a lot. I think Dortmund probably were contenders up until maybe a week or 2 weeks ago when that unfortunate Seb Haller diagnosis came through. Everyone here at Football Daily and Ranks FC obviously wishes him all the best with his recovery, because it has been revealed that his testicular tumour is malignant as well, so he's going to be out for even longer. So that's a spanner in the works. And Hans-Joachim Watzke has talked this week about how they do need to re-enter the market for that number 9. There's been talk about Edison Cavani, there's been talk about Edin Dzeko. Personally, I can't really see either of those ones happening, even though I'm sure Inter Milan would probably be quite delighted if anyone was going to pay for Edin Dzeko at this stage. But Dortmund, their big issue last year was conceding so many goals. I think they had the 8th worst defence in the Bundesliga. They conceded 17 in 8 European games across the Champions League and Europa League. But in Süle and Schlotterbeck, they've helped out their defence. And crucially, in midfield, Salihozcan as well, who people that watch a lot more Bundesliga than me talk about as a really, really good player at Cologne as well. Signed for a really bargain fee. So hopefully under Edin Terzic, who is quite a sort of charismatic figure. A lot of Dortmund fans are quite excited about being led by a Dortmund fan again. Obviously won the Pokal during his previous spell there as well. I think things could be pretty good for Dortmund. I do just worry that without that focal point, and Haller, you're asking a lot of Adeyemi, Marlon, Moukoko, an ageing Royce as well to pick up the slack in the goal front. So personally, I don't see them challenging for the league title necessarily, but I think they'll be comfortable top 4. So I'm going to go for 3rd for Dortmund. Jack, let's move on to the rest of the top 4. So you went Bayern top. How would you place 2nd and 3rd, and who would you have as 4th, crucially?
I would have gone the same as you. I'd have gone Leipzig in 2nd and Dortmund in 3rd. The thing that I actually would agree with Mike on is that if Dani Olmo can get going, Leipzig will title challenge. Dani Olmo's kind of lack of output, really, I think has been the thing that has held this side back, or one of the things that has held this side back from truly challenging. And it's similar maybe to the Szoboszlai thing, in that he's had flashes, but ultimately we haven't seen what Dani Olmo has fully brought to the table yet, I think. And I'm really excited because I love him. I think he's a wonderful footballer. But if he can get going, then and they get going fast off the back of that, then I'd completely agree and pretty much with you on everything about Dortmund, Dukes, apart from I'm not completely convinced by Terzic. Now, I know that's kind of sacrilege to Dortmund fans, and I can completely understand why they're so excited about having him back in charge and his kind of excitement, considering the kind of weird start that Marco Rose did and his kind of dour nature at times. But I'm not completely convinced that he's the man to kind of bring them back to a title challenge. I'd love to be proved wrong. I really would.
Would you, out of interest, would you have kept Marco Rose for another season, or would you have looked to employ someone else?
I think so. It felt like Marco Rose had finally got some of the signings that kind of maybe he felt like he was promised the year before, or that at least he wanted to work with, and then suddenly they were like, bye. It's kind of a strange dichotomy of being the guy and not getting the signings, and the signings coming in, and you're like, oh no, you didn't do well enough. And he's like, hang on, this is what I was waiting for. And at the time they were linked to Bensebaini as well, and you were going, okay, well, this is what Marco Rose wants. Like this is the things he's been successful with in the past. So I would have probably let him have another year. I do think he's a good coach, although there are issues with his kind of build-up and possessive styles. I can understand why Dortmund wanted to shift away from him. I've gone Leverkusen in 4th. It's not particularly dramatic, but I think they are probably fairly streets above the rest at the moment. And they were 3rd last season. I think the squad is a little bit light. And I thought so last year, obviously, in terms of where they kind of play in Europe and how they got on in Europe. You look at those kind of the squad, and they haven't lost many, which is important. But they have brought Klozek in. Obviously, they brought Sardar Azmoun in towards the back half of last year, and lost Lucas Alario. So those two probably deal with the loss of Alario. But I do think there's an element here of Leverkusen, and I think Gerard Serrani is doing a brilliant job. But can they fight on 3 fronts well? And I'm not 100% sure the answer is yes. And I'm not 100% sure that they have enough to be challenging, for the title. I think it's going to be a relatively comfortable Champions League spot, but not a title charge. Although, again, I would love to be wrong here.
Yeah, that would be excellent value as well. I think it's just all got to be. I mean, I said this on Ranks FC when I came on last year. It's just got to be about getting a trophy. I don't think they've won one since 1992.
And then getting knocked out in the first round of the Pokal, and you're looking at it going, "Oh, Leverkusen are doing a Leverkusen again, are they?" This is just what they do.
Absolutely, it's just a bit of a nightmare for them. But hopefully, I mean, I don't say hopefully. I think they'd rather progress in the Champions League. But if they drop into the Europa League, they did okay in the Europa League last year. Maybe they could put forward a Europa League challenge. I think stranger things have happened, to be honest. Did many people see Rangers reaching the Europa League final at the start of last season?
They were a better side than Eintracht for the entire season, and Eintracht won the Europa League. So
exactly,
yeah, stranger things have happened.
Exactly. McCubs, let's move on to underachievers and best signing quickly. Quickly, underachievers. Who are you going for in terms of being a bit flat next year?
I feel like Borussia Mönchengladbach haven't got any better this summer. It potentially got worse. Brill and Bolo, who was underperforming for them anyway, has left, and Matthias Ginter has gone as well. They've got Inko Ikatora who had a great season with Schalke last year in the Bundesliga Zwei. I don't know whether he's a direct Ginter replacement, but he's certainly there to reinforce the defence. But big shoes to fill. They're on their third manager in 3 seasons with Daniel Fark. I'm optimistic that Daniel Fark can maybe get this Mönchengladbach side playing some good football again. But at the same time, they have been in decline the last 2 years. And, I think, like Jack was saying, the gulf between the top 4 and everyone else now is so big. And Mönchengladbach were a side before that were challenging for the top 4, nearly every season. And now it just doesn't feel like they're going to get anywhere close to that. So, yeah, I feel like they're quite an easy shout. But I feel like, I don't feel like we're going to see Mönchengladbach, improve that much this term.
Fair enough. Yeah, I heard someone on a podcast. I didn't actually watch their performance last week, but I think they won 9-0 in the podcast, and someone said Marcus Thuram was looking back to his best. So that is one thing to get excited about. I'm going for Hertha as underachievers. I don't even know what underachieving is for them because last season was so dreadful, but they went through numerous managers. I just think they should be a lot better than they are in terms of, the size of the stadium, in terms of the size of the squad. And they've just been sleepwalking towards an inevitable relegation for years now. So maybe actually I'd rather see them go. Let's see. Let's move on to best signing, Jack. Who do you think has been the best signing in the Bundesliga? You can obviously take this in 2 directions because there's been some very expensive ones, but maybe you're looking for more of a bargain. I'm not sure.
I was going to take one of each and make
nice, go for it.
I'm going to put Matthias de Ligt in to begin with because I think that is a really, really smart long-term bit of business, and that could be the kind of rock that Bayern build on for a decade. There's concerns about this in some ways because I think they now, and Sam said this on Ranks, they have 4 centre-backs who think they're the best centre-back in the room. And that's slightly concerning if you're not playing 3 at the back. If you're playing 3 at the back, it's all right because you can rotate them. If you're not, then you've got a lot of people to please in a lot of positions.
A lot of ego.
Exactly. And De Ligt will expect that money, and the fans would expect that money for him to come in and start every week because that is, that's what you've brought him in here. Still a golden boy of Europe, still, one of those players who didn't really, I don't think, do himself any disservices at Juventus, was just there at a difficult time. And so they were happy to move him on because it's a kind of epithet of a bad period. But he himself, aside from the occasional silly penalty giveaway, didn't really do anything wrong, didn't really step out of line too much. So I'm pretty confident that Bayern have brought a little star in here and he's going to shine in this side. Lower down, I really like Matthias Svanberg, who's gone from Bologna to Wolfsburg. I thought he was excellent last season, and I really like this Bologna side, or elements of it. There's been picking out signings this season in the Premier League. I went for Aaron Hickey. I think picking out here, and I'll pick another one later, don't you worry. But I think that he's a really, really lovely midfielder. I think he does everything well, a very well-rounded player. And I think he's going to be a key part, and I think Wolfsburg will be back in the top 10, having a better season, challenging for Europe this season. So, yeah, I'm excited about seeing Svanberg make that jump from Serie A to Germany.
Nice one, yeah. Wolfsburg now under Niko Kovac as well, which is exciting. I thought he was pretty unfortunate at Bayern, but obviously did really well at Eintracht Frankfurt. And Monaco was a little bit inconsistent, but back in the Bundesliga, the league he knows so well, hopefully they can improve. McCubs, I know your best signing is already David Ram, so I'm going to ask you Sean 15 Mackenzie's question. With Lewandowski gone, who will win the Bundesliga Golden Boot? I mean, it's not just Lewandowski, but Haaland. I mean, surely the race is wide open this year.
Yeah, really wide open. I haven't even thought about that, to be honest. I don't know, Patrick Schick maybe. I was speaking about Andre Silva as well. I think he's going to be in with a shout if he can be supplied in a consistent manner. I think I'll go for Schick. Why not? I think Leverkusen will score a ton of goals again this season, so I'll go for him.
Nice one, yeah, and Kunku's got to be in the mix as well. That contract extension looked really sharp in the German Super Cup as well, so watch out for him once again before it feels inevitable that he'll move next year. But if McCubs is right and they end up winning the league, maybe not. Let's move on to Serie A. Now, I think this is going to be an intriguing title race, Jack.
Yes.
Who do you say are your favourites right now?
So this is a bold call because it relies on them making some more moves, but I'm going to back Milan to retain it.
Love it.
I like this squad. I think it's been they've done okay. Obviously, they've seen some big moves away, and Kessié, I suppose, is the big one there that you're looking at and going, okay, there's a hole to be plugged. They brought in Divock Origi, which I think gives them an edge, but they've lost out on a number of key targets as well. They lost Sven Botman to Newcastle. They've now lost Renato Sanches to PSG. It pretty much looks dead. That one's done and dusted. And so they do need, I think, a centre midfielder and potentially a centre back to back up Tomori and Kalulu. But I really, really like this side. And I think that they're well balanced and they have the right mentality. And on the pitch, you look at what happened last season and that end of the thing, and you look at it, not only did they win that absolutely ridiculous, run, I think it was 16 unbeaten towards the end of the season, but it was the last 6 games. And you looked at the run-in and you went, okay, who's got the hardest run-in here? Milan, Inter, and Napoli were in the conversation as well at that point. And the answer was Milan by a distance. Milan had the run-in that nobody wanted, and they held their nerve. And it's not the first time they've done this. They held their nerve the season before to secure a Champions League spot as well on the final day. I think they won 1-0 at Atalanta with a Kessié penalty to basically secure their spot in the Champions League after being hit with a body blow the week before, where they lost a game, I think it was against Cagliari, that they should have won. And then you just kind of look at this team and you go, okay, there's something here. There's something in the heart of this side that just doesn't know when to give up, that doesn't know when they're beaten. And I expect them to bring in the 2 players that they need. I really liked Ketelara. I think it's a really cool little signing. Not only can he play in 3 different positions, but equally, you see the way he wins. He wins duels. He's a brilliant ball carrier. And I just really like that kind of creative output that seems to be growing exponentially as he gets more and more confident within himself. He's kind of a funny body shape and a quite weird build for someone who plays in those positions. There's a little bit Kai Havertz about him in some ways, I think. But I just think that what they've done here and the squad that continues to kind of solidify, it was a very young squad that's only getting better, I think, in so many ways. And you look at Tonali and the aforementioned Kalulu and Tomori. These are players here, Brahim, Yassine Adli's come back from his loan spell and done really well in his early kind of, experiences here. I'm just excited about watching this side and seeing how they kick on. And I think that when you look at them and you look at everybody else, and I don't think everyone has strengthened, aside from maybe Napoli aside, I still think Milan hold it. I've just got a funny feeling.
I love it. Okay, fair enough. I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they deserve so much credit for getting it done down the stretch, especially without Simon Kjær, and Ibra barely played last season as well. And you feel like the season before that would have really rocked them, but those young players really did grow into it. McCubs, who are you going for Scudetto winners this year?
Yeah, I think it will be tight. Similarly, I do love this Milan side. Their starting lineup is great. There's clearly such a spirit there, and yeah, I'm particularly excited to see how Yassine Adli does when he comes back, because I thought he was brilliant for a really poor Bordeaux team for the last 2 years, especially. But I've got to go for Inter. I just think Inter have more strength in depth. I think they're stronger back to front, and of course, we could still see Skriniar go before the end of the window, but I just think Lukaku coming back to the club is massive. I think if he was there last season, then I think they probably win the title. It was really tight, and it just needed Inter not bottling it in a couple of games, and they would have had it. And I feel like, Lukaku linking up with Lautaro, suddenly that attack has pretty ridiculous depth, and the midfield is still really well functioning. Obviously, they've lost Perisic at left wing back. I kind of forget about that, actually. But I don't know. I just think
Robin Gosens, I suppose. Yeah,
it's true. I guess it kind of depends on his fitness. I'm not sure.
He's taken the number 8 shirt for what it's worth, which I hate.
Well, mark down for that then. I forget about Gosens, actually, and I haven't really kind of kept track of his kind of fitness record in recent months, but or at least in pre-season. But I just think that team was improving, wasn't it, under Inzaghi? And I think midway through last season, they were one of the most productive teams in Europe going forward, and that backline kind of does its job too. And Onana coming in at goalkeeper, it would be really interesting to see who ends up being the number one, because I think Onana, with his ball playing ability, could really suit this Inter side as well. So yeah, I think there's just a lot to be excited about for Inter fans, and yeah, I just think they're the strongest. I think they've just got the strongest squad. So yeah, I'm backing them.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, last year Mike Maignan distribution made such a difference for Milan, and it feels like Inter now have a sort of weapon from the back in their own in Onana, because as you say, his long range passing is exceptional, and those balls into the channel for Lukaku, it looks pretty good for Inter. But as you say, it's just about what happens towards the end of the window. I think The Athletic reported in May that they needed to make a £60 million or €60 million profit this summer, and they haven't got anywhere close to that, because they had to pay for Joaquin Correa's full fee from Lazio as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of their stars does go, but I'm not entirely sure who it will be at the moment, because that Skriniar deal, famous last words, we are recording this on a Wednesday, maybe it'll be done by Friday, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be done anytime soon. Let's quickly talk about Juventus. They finished 4th for the last 2 seasons. Last year their massive issue was goals and particularly creativity, and they have looked to address that in Di Maria and Pogba, but Di Maria is getting on a bit, of course. He is still a force, but that's potentially not going to be a player that's going to play over 30 or at least start over 30 league games next year. And then Paul Pogba already out injured, which has just been the story of his last 2-3 years. And a fully fit Paul Pogba going into a Serie A season, I'd have Juve potentially much closer to the 2 Milan clubs. But for me, I think they'll be a fairly distant third, even though they managed to strengthen with Bremer replacing De Ligt. They also look quite short at centre-back as well. I think it's just Bremer, Bonucci, Gatti and Rugani as their centre-backs at the moment, which is a little bit worrying. So, yeah, big loss there. And also Chiellini as well, behind the scenes, such an impressive leader and someone who really held that whole dressing room together. I think that is a big loss. Let's move on to VVN Zor's question. He says, Roma challenging for the title. Now, you're stepping in for Henry Hill this week, Jack, and he is a massive Roma, a massive Mourinho fan. But do you think VVN Zor's got a bit carried away here, or do you think Roma could sneak into contention?
Yeah, I think they could. Yeah, I think they're better placed than most. So I'll take Henry's role on here for a minute. I love this Roma side with Mourinho. I was very, very confident when he made this kind of call, when he joined Roma, that this was going to work. And I think so far so good. Now, it's not been perfect, I don't think by any stretch of the imagination, but it's the first bit of silverware in a long time under kind of the wing. And the side is starting to take shape again for how this is kind of going to play out this season. Now, I was a little bit surprised that they didn't sign Sergio Oliveira on a permanent after his loan spell. But then they go and, well, it looks like at this point when we're recording, they're about to sign Gini Wijnaldum. And there you go. There's your upgrade. And that's why they didn't sign Sergio Oliveira. And you're like, okay, fine, no worries at all. I really like this. I have Roma second in my top 4. I think that this team now and the way it looks, and the Dybala thing is a really interesting one, because we didn't necessarily talk about it when we talked about Inter, and I think it's a massive loss to Juventus' dressing room as well, that alongside the Chiellini one. But when you were looking at that Inter side and you go, well, where does Dybala fit? Because there is no space for him in this side. The smaller striker in there too usually plays over the top and as a kind of, trying to get in behind player. That's not Dybala's game. And depending on how you work this 4 or 5 in that attack, is there space for it to become sort of a 3-5-1-1, if you will? Because it doesn't look like that as far as I've seen it. So that's a strange one. And I have similar concerns about Mkhitaryan, but that's a separate point. I think that in this Roma system, the 2 behind the striker off the right-hand side, that is about as perfect a position as you could pick for a Paulo Dybala at this point in his career. I think you add to that the fact that he's going to be able to be rotated. There's less reliance on him, and that should help his injury record, in that Zaniolo plays in there, in that Pellegrini plays in there, and El Shaarawy plays in there as well at times. So you're looking at these and going, okay, you don't need him all the time, but when he does play, can you get the best out of him? And I think the answer is yes. We've seen Tammy now playing in that forward role, and we know that he is exceptional in that space. We've seen Pellegrini rise to one of the best midfielders, I think, in the entire world, and Zaniolo is starting to return to the form which made him so exciting to begin with. You add Gini Wijnaldum to this mix, and suddenly you're looking at this going, yeah, and a refit Spinazzola, don't forget. There's a lot about this side I like, and I think that they're going to surprise some people this season. I've got them in at 2.
Love it. Love it.
Nice.
It's a good shout. It's a good shout. I mean, you make a very compelling case, and I don't think they're done with their business yet either. I think Andrea Belotti's been strongly linked with a move there.
Would make
He's
a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, he's a free agent now, and Shomorodov is joining Bologna on loan, or maybe already has, so he'd be a much better backup than Shomorodov to Tammy Abraham. And I think Tammy Abraham played over 50 games last year. So if you can drop that a little bit and make sure that he doesn't get injured in what's going to be a busy year for Tammy Abraham with the World Cup, although, of course, he'll probably be a backup there. Then I think Roma, I've personally got them fourth, but I'd love to see them finish a bit higher, especially on the back of that Europa Conference League title, that first trophy in 12 years. So, yeah, best of luck to them. McCubs, let's quickly talk about Fiorentina and Lazio, because Fiorentina have made a lot of, pretty exciting signings. Jovic has come in on a free, Galini on loan from Spurs, and Dodo, who's a highly rated right-back from Shakhtar as well. But they have let Eric Pulgar go, and Callahan has also left on a free. Felt like last year was maybe their sort of peak. Fiorentina, I think, will be really competitive in that sort of 4th to 8th region, so we'll see how they get on. But Lazio have also been a team that have really gone for it this market and changed a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Murici's gone. Lucas Leiva's obviously left. Him and Strakosha were a huge part of that spine, weren't they? I'm a bit concerned about that. But at the same time, I think in Luis Maximiano, they've signed one of the best young goalkeepers in Europe. Marcos Antonio as well. They got in on a great deal from Shakhtar. I think Lazio will have a solid season. I think they went a little bit under the radar last term under Sarri. There was a lot of hype around Roma, but Lazio ended up finishing above them. Having said that, I do think they've not strengthened in as significant a way to challenge us seriously for the top four as a side like Roma. So I do, yeah. I mean, I've got Roma in fourth as well, and I think it will be really tight actually between them and Juve in third. I think with all these sides again, Atalanta as well, I don't think they've strengthened enough. It's sad to see them it was sad to see them kind of drop out of the title race and then drop out of the top four race last season, and I kind of feel like they're going to have another year outside of the top four too. I feel like that top four is slightly set in stone. I feel like Napoli could maybe challenge for a bit, but I just worry about their over-reliance on Osimhen this season. His fitness record's not great, is it? So I kind of think that I think we've all gone for the same teams within the top four, and I think that's probably how it will turn out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I hear your points about Napoli as well. I think there'll be this season's surprise drop-off. I don't think it'll be sort of as catastrophic as many were predicting a couple of months ago, because I do think Kim Min-jae looks like a really exciting centre-back signing. I'm less sure about Ostergaard and this Georgian left winger whose name I will have nailed down by the start of next season, but I'm just not quite ready to debut it on Continental Club just yet. Looks really, really exciting.
I've got it written out in phonetics.
Nice, Jack, go for it.
Quicha Quatsraselia.
Love it.
Quaratselia. Quicha
rolls
Quaratselia.
off the tongue.
Yeah.
Rolls off the tongue.
He did say you could just call me Quicha.
Oh, lovely. Okay,
so
Quicha.
I think we can roll with it.
Yeah, and I'll take that as permission. Anyway, he looks exceptional in pre-season. There's this Napoli account I sometimes interact with on Twitter, and for some reason they kept on sending me clips of him, and he does look really, really good.
They look like they're going to sign Raspadori, dudes.
Sorry?
If they sign Raspadori, I have higher
didn't even
hopes.
see that. Is that a link? I didn't
Yeah,
even see that.
this is a big link for Raspadori. It looks like some sort of agreement between clubs is close. That, I think, changes everything. If they sign Raspadori, I think they're right back into the top four conversation. If they don't, I had them worried about underachievers as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know about that. I mean, underachievers might be Sassuolo then, if they're going to get rid of Scamacca and Raspadori in the same summer. Still don't understand why no one's gone for Domenico Berardi, but there must be something going on.
This is your pitch.
This is my pitch, exactly. Jack, let's quickly, before we go on to La Liga, talk about the best signing. Who for you is the best one in Serie A?
I think Luka Jovic is the best signing in Europe. Full stop.
Wow.
For getting him for a free, yes, they're paying 50% of his wages. I think it's the equivalent of paying about 5 million for him over 2 years, so 10 million overall. 5 million a season, which you'd probably be paying him in wages anyway. So this is one of the things, and it's 50% sell-on clause. It's one of those deals, you don't get them very often, where everyone is a winner, I think. If Real Madrid get that 50% of the sell-on, if he does well and they sell him on, then great, because he was a dead asset and they've taken 50% of the wages off the books for 2 seasons. Brilliant. If he doesn't do brilliantly, then it's one of those that it doesn't really hurt anyone, because Fiorentina have depth in those attacking options, and it doesn't really, it's not a problem position for Real Madrid there. And I think I just have a real feeling he does well. It's his first game, he scored 4 in a brace in about 15 minutes in pre-season. Yes, it's pre-season, usual caveats apply, but it looks good. And I think what's brilliant about the Jovic signing is it gives Italiano options in this Fiorentina side. There was so much of last year where Artur Cabral played and didn't quite settle as well as I think many of us had hoped. But I've all confidence in him kicking on again this season. And Piontek was there, who basically just wasn't very good, and ultimately just didn't do what they needed him to do. There's also an element of the two of them were a little bit too similar. Now, Jovic and Cabral is a very, very Alain Jovic kind of vibe. And I think what it gives Fiorentina is that ability to go 2 up top at times, to switch this out. And that Dodo signing means that there is the option to go to wing backs as well. Fiorentina were desperate for a right back. And I think that when you look at all of these things put together, everything seems to kind of fit. And I have a funny feeling Fiorentina either pick up 5th or 6th spot this season, or they win the Conference League.
Oh, love it. Fair enough. And yeah, I think you make excellent points, and maybe they could expect a little bit more of Jonathan Okone.
Yes,
who probably
definitely.
who probably didn't hit the ground running quite as expected after his move from Lille. So there we have it. Right, let's move on to La Liga, and we're going to do this league in more of a quickfire fashion, because we did do a special on La Liga last week with Alan Feely, so go check out that Continental club, which was excellent. So me and my Cubs have given lots of our thoughts about La Liga already, but we've got Jack Collins, La Liga fanatic, I would say, or Real Betis fanatic at least, so we need to ask him about various different questions, and we're going to start at the top. Jack, who is going to win La Liga this year?
Barcelona.
Oh, okay.
I just think that you look at where they were under Xavi at the back half of last season, right? And then you kind of try and add that up to where Real Madrid are. And they felt similar, I would argue, across the back half of last season in terms of points, in terms of where the two sides were. And it feels like Barcelona have got so much stronger, and Real Madrid have consolidated. Now, they've brought in some good signings. I'm not knocking Rudiger or Tchouaméni. I think they're both brilliant signings. I think they're a little bit light in the forward lines with the amount of players that have been let go / kind of moved around. But more than that, I just have a feeling that this Barcelona side might explode. And you look at the signings, it's easy to see why, right? Rafinha, Koundé, Lewandowski, Kessié, Christensen. They're all places. They were all positions of need. They were all spaces where they felt like they needed to get stronger. And I think they just have done in pretty much every aspect. This is a side built to challenge on numerous fronts, I think, now. And I see them almost storming to the title, to be perfectly honest with you.
Wow, fair enough. Storming to the title. I think that's up there with the Leipzig winning Bundesliga, for me, at least. I mean, McCubs, last week you were hunching on Real Madrid. You weren't quite sure, but you were going with Real Madrid. Does that pitch change your mind at all?
Not quite. I'm still going to go for Real Madrid, just because I think the fact that they are more settled, I think it's going to be super, super close. But I just think Real Madrid, more settled team. Barca, I'm not quite sure what their best starting lineup is at the moment, and I think Real Madrid are still stronger in the fullback positions. That's basically what wins it for me for Real Madrid. But actually, on Sunday Vibes last week, I put forward Barcelona as Champions League winners. So
Did you?
Yeah, in a more precarious competition, I feel like they might thrive. Maybe that's just the precariousness of the club in general. But yeah, I'm still going to back Real. I've actually gone for Barca second, Atleti third, and I've actually got your boys Betis, Jack, in fourth.
Hey,
I think they're going to pip Sevilla to the Champions League spot. So I think they've just they've come on a lot under Pellegrini, haven't they? I was actually on signings actually, because I saw a bit of some highlights from him, but I feel like you've probably seen him more. What do you make of Luis Enrique? Are you excited about him as a signing for Betis?
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? Betis always need to have one random American winger is how I would phrase it. They have got rid of Diego Lainez now on loan to Braga. They were like, right, we need some more chaos to bring on if things aren't going our way. I think that's a really good move for Lainez, by the way. I think he will thrive in Portugal and come back a better player. But Luis Enrique, he seems fun. Again, I hadn't seen all that much of him at Fluminense before he arrived, but everything he's shown so far, every cameo is incredibly lively. He's very direct. He's very wriggly in many ways, and I like those kind of players. I think there's that space there. So if you're a winger and you're coming in and you can learn from Joaquin, you're probably on the right kind of track, aren't you? So on those ones, I think it's an excellent bit of business. It was a relatively low fee, and so I think it's probably one for the future as opposed to right now, but one that excites nonetheless. I think the other Luis Felipe from Lazio actually is probably the signing that probably affects this season more, and I'd agree with you. I think Betis is going to finish fourth.
Jack, if you were a fan of Atleti or Sevilla, would you be slightly worried? I don't think either of them have ripped up any trees in the market this summer.
A little bit, but not hugely from an Atleti perspective. I struggle to come from the perspective of a Sevilla fan, as you might imagine. But I think this Atleti side have something going for them this season in that they haven't lost all that much, right? Luis Suarez aside. And what they have done is they've kind of consolidated that squad from last year, which most people said was the squad was good enough to win the league. And they were in that position last year where they were uncomfortable favourites. And I think they hated it. I think to be honest, Cholo wants to hate it more than anyone else on earth. But he hated it. This season, everyone's gone quiet on Atleti. And that's exactly how they like it. And I think that what they brought in here, Molina I really like, to kind of fill that Trippier gap that has been there for a long time. Witsel is the most Cholo player of all time. How he hasn't played for Atleti already, I don't know. In my head, I was just like, oh, he's going back, is he? Someone was like, he's never played there. And I was like, oh, okay. Right, cool, no worries. It feels like this squad is consolidated. There's still a lot of talent in here, and I think that they're coming from a position that they feel more comfortable from, and I think that probably tallies to them comfortably coming third again, because I think they're at that kind of space where, but I think this year they'll tear up a few more trees. They'll get a big kind of belly punch in on one of the big guns, and they'll feel like they're more competitive from that kind of standpoint. I think because they were so bad at the start of last season from such a high, it felt like they were further off than they actually were until they actually dropped off towards the end of the season.
Yeah, this is what Alan was saying last week, that they are just not good defending champions. It doesn't fit with their ethos and their love of being the underdog. And I do think there are some issues in that squad still. I think they've stayed the same, as Jack said. I think Molina at right back's probably an improvement on Vashalko. Axel Witsel and Hector Herrera, for me, it's probably not much between it. Yeah. And then, losing Luis Suarez, I think, is a big loss, especially if Morata's not going to stick around next year. I do think they look a little bit short of goals because Angel Correa has really stepped up in recent years, but João Felix still hasn't hit the numbers, at least, that we would have expected from him just yet. So, I'm going Atleti third, and then I'm going Betis fourth as well, actually. Underachievers, I think, what is underachieving at Valencia? I've got no idea. It's probably just finally being relegated, but Gattuso at Valencia just feels like an absolute nightmare waiting to happen. Let's talk about best signing, Jack. There's not actually been that many outside of the biggest clubs, but have you unearthed any gems that you think could be, taking top spot?
Yeah, I love the signing of Tati Castellanos for Girona. It's Girona, isn't it? Because it's Catalonian. My mistake, my bad. But I really like this. Big fan. Obviously, it's a within the City group transfer. But what I've really liked about watching Castellanos in MLS and for NYCFC is that he scores scrappy goals. Like, he is not the kind of striker, and you see a lot of this in MLS, or who's kind of whacks one in from 30 yards every second game, because that kind of thing doesn't necessarily translate particularly well, I don't think, to when you make that switch over to the European leagues. Those are the things that actually don't necessarily sit in the same way. What does is scoring 5-yard tap-ins, is scoring scrambles off corners, is scoring goals where you run off the back of the defender and can finish from a number of places within the 18-yard box. I'm really hot on him. I think this is the best striker they could have asked for at Girona. So I'm really excited to see, and I think there is a very good chance that he makes another step up after this season, because he feels like one of those players who's kind of got that attitude that you just know they're going to score. They know they're going to win. There's a little bit Luis Suarez about him, to be perfectly honest with you. And that's a massive comparison. I'm not making the claim that they are the same caliber of player. But in terms of style, in terms of that kind of scrappiness within the box, I do quite like this. So I'm going to go Tati Castellanos to get 10 or above for Girona.
Ooh, love that. Yeah, he was linked with Leeds earlier in the summer, and
would have been a good signing.
Yeah, would have been interesting because they do, look short of an out-and-out sort of 9 backup with Bamford having had so many injury issues last year. Although Luis Sinisterra should chip in with a fair few goals as well. Let's leave La Liga there, McCubs, and move on to Liga. Who is your top 3 in Liga? I assume we've all got PSG top, but who's your second and third?
So I've gone for PSG. I think my prediction is a bit more spicy than I thought. I've gone for PSG first. I've gone for Lyon second. I've gone for Rennes third. I've gone for Rennes third. I think I'm being overly optimistic with Lyon, but I think Lacazette coming back, Tolisso coming back. They're under new ownership now. I feel like the mood around the club is probably better than it was last year. Obviously, Peter Bosz is maybe living on borrowed time a little bit, but he has retained the support of Ola, which I think is important. And obviously it's important, otherwise he'd be gone. But I just feel like this Lyon team will maybe kick into gear a bit next year. I think they've got better depth now. I think it went under the radar a little bit how good Moussa Dembele was, coming back from injury and then kind of hitting, just hitting such good scoring form last term. And I think I just think those places under PSG in Ligue 1 are just always up for grabs. And so I'm backing them to sneak in second.
I like it. Jack, how do you see the Champions League picture in France going next year?
I've got Monaco, Rennes, Lyon, but I agree with pretty much all of that. I just think that Monaco and Rennes are slightly in better places. But I'm pretty confident in Lyon, especially without European football being able to kick back into this top 4 and compete again where they probably feel that they should be. I like what Monaco have vaguely done. It hasn't been all that much turnover, obviously, but because they have such a big squad, because they bring in so many youngsters and then kind of let them see if they can. They feel like they were almost kind of set for Tchouaméni's departure before he left, and I think that's an incredible position to be in that almost no other club in the world would be able to do. And you look at it and you go, okay, yeah, they'll probably be all right. Brought in Taki Minamino. I thought that was an interesting one. I've watched him a bit in pre-season and in the qualifiers against Southampton in pre-season. He played off Ben Yedder as the kind of 10 and everything went through him. In the qualifiers, he played wider, was less involved. But I think they've got nice rotation options in here. And, we talked a little bit about players who you thought have played for clubs already. Braille and Bolo, like at Monaco, that's surely happened before. Like that, it feels like the most Monaco transfer of all time. We're excited about this Monaco side. They feel like the most settled, I think, challenger to PSG. And let's be clear, I don't think any of these sides are challenging PSG for the title. I think this is a battle for second. But I think they feel the most settled of the challenger sides, and that's why I've given the edge. I really like what Rennes are doing. I think it's going to be very interesting if they do switch this back 3, which they seem to be signing the players for as we speak. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Lyon 4th. I think they are in a good place. Getting the band back together, I think, is as much about mentality as it is necessarily about bringing in actual the players for the sake of having them back. I'm excited about seeing how this pans out. But that's how I've got it.
Nice one. Yeah, I agree with Monaco in second to me. They finished last season so spectacularly well, and they wouldn't even need the playoff if they hadn't drawn with Lens on the final day with that 95th minute equaliser, which is a real shame because they look like they're up against it against PSV now in terms of Champions League qualification. They drew at home that first leg. The second leg's on Tuesday, so best of luck to them. It'd be great to see a few more French sides make it deep into the Champions League and the Europa League, actually, because I was looking like I don't think a French club has ever won the Europa League or UEFA Cup, which is kind of mad. We need to see more French teams getting deeper in European competition. In terms of third, I'd have loved to say Marseille, but it's just been such a chaotic summer that I think they might just completely implode, to be honest. I do rate the appointment of Igor Tudor, but there was a nice thing going under Sampaoli last year. They signed all their loanees, and then classic Marseille fashion, it all just blows up in his face, and it's just an absolute nightmare. And it was all about not retaining Saliba and Boubacar Kamara as well. And they've made some really quite unique signings as well. I think Alexis Sanchez has the potential to be an absolute superstar in Liga or just absolutely terrible. There'll be no in between. Nuno Tavares, something similar. So I'm a little bit confused with how Marseille will go. But let's talk underachiever quickly. I'm potentially saying Marseille, but Jack, Lille, it looks like it's going to be another difficult season for them.
Yeah, it's a rebuild, isn't it? Fonseca's obviously gone in there. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see how he pans out. I really rate him as a coach. I suppose I wouldn't say underachieving because of how they did last season, right?
Yeah.
I think they will probably just about improve on that. I think there's enough talent still in this squad to improve on it. Is that still underachievement for a side that won the league 2 years ago? Probably. But I think they're probably going to be in a rebuild, getting better stage. So I'm not going to put them down. I'm worried about Marseille, as you are. I'm also a little bit worried about Nantes, who I just don't know have a deep enough squad to deal with the rigours of European football on top of their domestic stuff. I'm a bit concerned, and I think the Super Cup, whilst it's PSG and you have to take it with a pinch of salt, showcased a few of these problems, and there's players suspended for the start of the season. I think if it starts badly, it could really start to tail off. I'm a little bit concerned about Lens as well, who I like, but I just not completely convinced are going to be up to it this season. On the other hand, I think Strasbourg will be right back up there, and I think Stefan's doing an unbelievable job at that club. As long as they held on to Ludovic Ajorc, they'll be fine. So, worried about Lens and Nantes.
Yeah, Lens, I think Doucouré is a massive loss. But yeah, let's see
how
they go on.
They signed Moussa Sissoko, who I think is not going to be the guy.
Yeah, that feels like a big ask for Sissoko, having seen him last year. Cubs, to wrap up the show, who's your favourite signing in Liga? I think I know where you're going to
go. I think we're all predicting Marseille to drop off a bit. I still think Jonathan Klaus is an amazing signing for them. Best wing back in the league last year, 5 goals, 11 assists for Lens, and again, I think he's another big loss for Lens, someone who they'll struggle to replace. Hopefully, if this Marseille team can at least kind of try to perform in a similar fashion to last year. I know without Sampaoli that's almost impossible, but I feel like Klaus would have been kind of perfect for that system. Hopefully he'll be a bright spot for them. I think it was slim pickings, I think, in Liga, but I think as kind of safe bets go, I think Jonathan Klaus is right up there.
Yeah, I tend to agree as well. Yeah, similar to La Liga, not that many deals to talk about in Liga. But guys, that is all we've got time for on today's predictions. I'm sorry, we've already kept Jack for way longer than we planned to, but we just had so much to talk about. Jack, thank you as ever for your expert opinion. If people want to hear more from you, how can they do so?
Thank you for having me, first and foremost. It's been a real pleasure chatting to you both again. I can be found on @JackJCollins on Twitter, on the Ranks FC podcast, on all good podcast apps, and on Twitter here if you just search Ranks, and on YouTube here if you just search Ranks FC.
Perfect. And McCubs, what would you recommend that they go and watch in the Football Daily sphere after this?
Just go and watch the Football Pyramid final between myself and Patrick that happened on Saturday. It was a really good battle.
Nice. Perfect, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Go check out Ranks FC and Jack's Twitter, and we'll catch you later. Bye.